Welcome back to the show, and today we're taking on a topic that once dominated every corner of crypto, social media, and mainstream culture, and now feels like it's been quietly buried under the noise of ETFs, meme coins, and macro charts. NFTs, non-fungible tokens. The asset class that went from complete confusion to global mania to an almost uncomfortable silence. And in this deep dive, we're going to break down exactly what NFTs were supposed to be, what they actually became, why so many people got wrecked, why the market is so quiet today, and why that silence might not be the death of the entire sector, but the transition to its next phase. And before we get going, a quick thank you for all the support this month. We're now about 80 ratings away from unlocking the next 50 XRP giveaway, and we're also giving 10 XRP to the comment of the week, plus 5 XRP to a second listener. We'll reply directly to your comment to get your address, and we're doing this every Friday up to Christmas, so stay involved. And before we even get into the chaos of 2021 and the collapse that followed, we need to rewind the clock and explain, in real human terms, what an NFT actually is. Because most people, even during the peak, didn't really understand it. An NFT, at the simplest possible level, is just a unique entry on a blockchain that proves ownership of something. That's it. It could be a picture, a ticket, a video clip, a song, a piece of in-game gear, a membership pass, a certificate, or even your identity. It's the digital version of a receipt combined with a deed of ownership. But unlike a normal image file that can be copied endlessly, an NFT points to a specific one, a unique one that you can verify publicly on-chain. But in the early days, this was a hard sell. Try telling the average person in 2020 that they should pay thousands of dollars for a JPG of a monkey, even though the image itself could be right-clicked and saved. Try explaining blockchain ownership to someone who has spent their whole life believing digital goods have no scarcity. The idea went against everything people thought they knew about the internet. It didn't feel tangible, and that disconnect between what NFTs actually were and what people saw created a natural resistance. The vast majority of people dismissed NFTs as nonsense long before they understood the technology behind them. And then came the madness. Overnight, the NFT market turned into the most explosive, chaotic, speculative environment crypto had ever seen. Collections launched out of nowhere. Influencers were making millions. People were flipping profile pictures for life-changing money. The hype became so overwhelming that even celebrities, athletes, actors, and Fortune 500 brands piled in without knowing what they were buying. And the numbers weren't just big, they were outrageous. Bored Ape Yacht Club became the face of the entire movement. At its peak in April 2022, the floor price hit 153 Ethereum, which at the time was worth around $430,000. To buy the cheapest possible ape, you needed nearly $500,000, and people were paying it happily, not because they liked the art, but because it gave them access. Access to private groups, access to celebrities, access to a certain type of status, and access to what everyone believed was the next frontier of digital identity. CryptoPunks, one of the earliest NFT projects ever made, peaked at around 120 Ethereum for the lowest priced punk. At today's ETH value, that's still massive money, but at the time it was hundreds of thousands of dollars. Even Azuki, which came later, ripped to over 30 Ethereum. Doodles surged to 20 Ethereum. Moonbirds hit 35 Ethereum within days of minting. It was unbelievable. And underneath these skyrocketing floor prices, the trading volume was absolutely enormous. January 2022 alone saw nearly $2.6 billion in NFT trading volume. Today, that number is closer to $140 million to $200 million, depending on the week. A 93% collapse from peak levels. Another thing that's worth pointing out is how much of the early NFT mania was driven by pure momentum rather than actual conviction. People weren't buying because they believed in digital ownership or long-term utility. They were buying because everything was going up and nobody wanted to be the one who missed the next 100th flip. That atmosphere created a feedback loop where hype became fuel and fuel became validation. And when that loop finally broke, the whole structure collapsed faster than most people expected. It wasn't that NFTs suddenly stopped working. It was that the psychological engine behind the market ran out of energy. And once that happened, the silence that followed was almost guaranteed. And this is why NFTs suddenly feel silent today. Because when a sector loses 90% of its liquidity, 90% of its participants, and 90% of its hype, it doesn't just cool off, it freezes. The entire atmosphere changed almost overnight. But why? There are clear reasons. When interest rates rise globally and the cost of borrowing goes up, speculative markets die. Crypto becomes more expensive to trade, leverage becomes more dangerous, and people stop gambling on what feels like digital luxury items. Liquidity vanished. And when liquidity vanishes, NFTs, being one of the least liquid asset types in crypto, were hit hardest. We're going to take a quick break. Stay with us, because when we come back, we're getting into the part of the story that really matters.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews all on the app. Download Thumbtack today.
What can 160 years of experience teach you about the future? When it comes to protecting what matters, Pacific Life provides life insurance, retirement income, and employee benefits for people and businesses building a more confident tomorrow. Strategies rooted in strength and backed by experience. Ask a financial professional how Pacific Life can help you today. Pacific Life Insurance Company, Omaha, Nebraska, and in New York. Pacific Life and Annuity, Phoenix, Arizona.
Another reason is that utility never materialized. Projects promised games that were never built. Roadmaps didn't happen. Teams vanished. Millions were spent on artwork and branding. But the actual usefulness of the NFT remained vague. Access to Discord groups and a t-shirt drop wasn't enough to justify a six-figure price tag. Retail investors woke up one day and realized they were holding expensive pictures with no real-world purpose. And then came the scams. Rug pulls, fake mints, insider trading, wash trading on marketplaces, stolen NFTs, phishing attacks. When that behavior becomes the norm in an industry, trust evaporates. And once trust is gone, it's nearly impossible to rebuild in the short term. But here's the interesting twist. NFTs didn't die. Only Ethereum PFP NFTs died. While Ethereum NFT volume collapsed, other ecosystems started quietly growing. Solana NFTs are now one of the strongest segments of the entire NFT world. Trading volumes on Solana are up 240 to 300% from last year. Collections like Mad Lads, SMBs, and Tensorians have become the new cultural hotspots. NFT trading on Bitcoin, ordinals, exploded in 2023 and 2024, producing more volume than most people expected. Gaming NFTs on Immutable, Parallel, and other ecosystems have quietly built real user bases. Even global brands like Nike and Starbucks have continued building out NFT loyalty systems, but they don't call them NFTs. They call them digital collectibles, because the word NFT became toxic. This is exactly what analysts have been predicting. Frank Chaparro from The Block said, "The NFT mania died, but the underlying technology found more realistic applications in gaming and loyalty programs." And he's right. NFTs that were purely speculative artworks collapsed. NFTs that act as functional assets, tickets, passes, in-game items, rewards, are still quietly growing. Masari analyst Kunal Goel framed it well when he said, "NFTs are transitioning from speculation to infrastructure. The next cycle won't look like the last one." This is the core idea. NFTs were a bubble, but NFT technology wasn't. And even Mike Novogratz, someone who has openly criticized NFT speculation, recently said, "NFTs will come back, but the next big use case will be utility, not profile pictures." This is where the deep dive really shows its weight. Because if NFTs are going to revive, and history suggests they will, they won't revive because BAYC goes back to 150 ETH, or because some influencer says they're bullish again. They'll revive because they embed themselves into everyday digital systems without users even knowing they're interacting with NFTs. Gaming skins, event tickets, loyalty programs, memberships, digital rights, identity verification, That's the real future. And the numbers support the shift. Gaming NFTs now have more active users than any Ethereum PFP collection. Brand NFTs from Nike, Adidas, and Starbucks have reached millions of non-crypto consumers. And on Bitcoin, ordinals generated hundreds of millions in trading volume during their peak months. The energy never disappeared. It simply moved. There's also a long-term macro point. As blockchain infrastructure gets faster, cheaper, and more scalable, NFTs become more usable. During the 2021 mania, minting a single NFT on Ethereum could cost between $150 and $400 in gas fees. That alone made NFTs inaccessible to regular people. Today, many chains allow NFT creation for under a penny. This opens the door for mass adoption. And it's important to remember this. NFTs aren't tied to price charts. They're tied to culture. Culture cycles. Always has. Always will. And when culture shifts again, whether through gaming, fashion, music, film, or loyalty, NFTs will be right there beneath the surface. So yes, NFTs are quiet. Yes, the hype is gone. Yes, the floor prices are destroyed. But the technology is embedding itself deeper, the use cases are maturing, and the next wave won't look anything like the 2021 mania. In many ways, that's a good thing. It strips out the noise, the scams, the madness, and leaves behind the pieces that actually matter. Make sure you're following the show, drop your comments below, and as always, we'll see you at the top.